What if I told you that every single time you say, I am tired, I am broke, or I am afraid, you're actually using the most sacred name of God to shape your reality? Stay with me because what you're about to discover might completely transform the way you understand not just faith, but the very power of your own consciousness. For over 2,000 years, humanity has stood before one of the most revolutionary spiritual statements ever uttered, yet we've completely missed its true meaning. When Jesus declared, I am the way, the truth, and the life, the world responded by placing him on an unreachable pedestal, worshiping the messenger while ignoring the message itself. We made him special, different, separate from ourselves, so extraordinary that his teachings became impossible for ordinary people like you and me to actually live and demonstrate in our daily lives. But here's the profound truth that Smith Wigglesworth spent decades revealing to thousands of seekers. Jesus wasn't claiming personal superiority over humanity. He was unveiling a spiritual secret so powerful, so transformative, that it holds the master key to every healing, every breakthrough, every moment of genuine peace that transcends your circumstances. Has this ever happened to you? You read something spiritually inspiring, you feel that surge of hope, but then life's challenges hit and you wonder why nothing really changes. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. The answer lies in understanding what I am truly means. It's not just a grammatical construction or a way to introduce yourself. I am represents the infinite presence of God, expressing itself as individual conscious being, and that includes you. Think about it. Every time you declare I am followed by anything, you're not making a simple statement about yourself. You're activating the most creative force in the universe, the very name by which God identified himself to Moses in the burning bush. The problem is that most of us unconsciously use this divine power against ourselves. I am sick. I am struggling. I am not good enough. Each of these declarations isn't just describing your current state, it's literally reinforcing and creating your experience at the deepest level of consciousness. This isn't religious metaphor or motivational philosophy. This is the actual mechanics of how your consciousness shapes your reality. What you're about to learn goes far beyond positive thinking or affirmations. This is about recognizing your true spiritual identity beyond your personality, beyond your body, beyond your circumstances and history. When you grasp what Smith Wigglesworth discovered about the power of I am, you'll understand why some people experience miraculous transformations while others remain stuck, despite years of prayer and effort. So the question becomes, are you ready to discover what it really means when consciousness itself declares, I am? Because once you understand this truth at a level deeper than intellectual concept, your entire relationship with life, with challenges, with God himself, undergoes fundamental transformation. And it starts with understanding exactly what Jesus was revealing. When he said those 3 revolutionary words, Smith Wigglesworth didn't arrive at this understanding through theological study or religious tradition. He discovered it through decades of real-world experience, working with thousands of people who desperately needed breakthrough, healing, and transformation in their lives. What he found was nothing short of revolutionary, a hidden truth that had been buried beneath centuries of religious misinterpretation. The real power of spiritual transformation wasn't about getting God to do something for you from some distant heaven. It was about recognizing what God is already being as you, right now, in this very moment. Think about the profound implications of this for your own journey. Most of us have been taught to pray as if we're begging an external deity to intervene in our circumstances, to fix our problems, to heal our bodies, to provide for our needs. We approach spirituality like we're knocking on a door, hoping someone on the other side will eventually answer. But what Wigglesworth revealed was that the divine presence we're seeking outside ourselves is actually the consciousness through which we're doing the seeking. It's the awareness reading these words right now. It's the life force breathing through your lungs at this exact second. This wasn't just inspirational philosophy for Wigglesworth. It was practical spiritual mechanics that produced measurable results in people's lives. When someone came to him with chronic illness, he didn't pray for God to heal them. Instead, he guided them to recognize the Christ consciousness already present as their true nature, beneath the appearance of disease. When someone faced financial collapse, he didn't ask God to send money. He taught them to recognize infinite supply as the very essence of their consciousness, not as something external they needed to attract. If this resonates with you, subscribe to stay connected to these transformative teachings. We're continuously exploring deeper spiritual principles that create real results in daily life. Now here's where this understanding becomes truly transformative for your own life. Jesus made a statement that seems almost impossible to believe. "The works that I do, you shall do also, and even greater works than these shall you do." For 2,000 years, people have wondered how this could possibly be true. How could ordinary human beings perform the same works as Jesus, let alone greater ones? The answer lies in understanding that the Christ consciousness that animated Jesus, that divine awareness, that recognition of unity with infinite presence, is the exact same consciousness available to you right now. This isn't about becoming spiritual or achieving some elevated state. This is about recognizing what is already true about your being beyond all the layers of conditioning, fear, and false identity. The same infinite intelligence that orchestrated the healing miracles through Jesus is the intelligence orchestrating your heartbeat, regulating your breathing, and maintaining the unfathomable complexity of your body's systems without any conscious effort from your personality. That's not theology or belief system. That's observable reality when you look closely enough at what consciousness actually is. The profound shift happens when you stop identifying yourself as a limited personality trying to reach God and start recognizing yourself as the expression of God's presence in this unique form. Your thoughts, your words, your declarations beginning with "I am" take on completely different creative power when you understand they're not coming from a separate limited ego, but from infinite consciousness itself, expressing through this point of awareness. Every mindset shift, every decision, every revelation about your true nature builds upon this foundation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this understanding, because knowing this intellectually is one thing, but actually experiencing the transformation in your daily life is something entirely different. Write in the comments, "I am divine consciousness," if this resonates with you. Let me share with you a real story that perfectly illustrates how powerful this shift in understanding can be. There was a woman named Margaret who had been living in chronic, debilitating pain for over 3 years. Imagine carrying that weight every single day, waking up in pain, going through your daily activities in pain, lying down at night in pain. She had exhausted every medical option available to her. Specialists couldn't find the root cause. Medications provided no lasting relief. Physical therapy, alternative treatments, prayer circles, nothing seemed to touch the depth of her suffering. What's fascinating about Margaret's journey is that she had been praying intensely during those 3 years. She would spend hours begging God to heal her body, pleading for relief, asking why this suffering had come upon her. Her faith was genuine, her prayers were sincere, but the pain remained unchanged. The hidden truth she hadn't yet discovered was that her entire approach was backwards. She was asking an external God to do something to her physical body, completely missing the real transformation that needed to happen in her consciousness. When Margaret finally encountered Smith Wigglesworth's teaching, everything she thought she knew about healing and prayer was turned upside down. He didn't offer her what she expected. He didn't pray over her body. He didn't ask God to remove her pain. Instead, he guided her through a practice that seemed almost too simple to work. He taught her to sit in deep silence each day and recognize just one fundamental truth. "I am" is the only presence actually here. Not, "I am Margaret with a painful body," but rather, "I am" pure consciousness itself, untouched by physical circumstances. This required a complete mindset shift for Margaret. She had to stop identifying herself as a broken body needing to be fixed and start recognizing herself as infinite presence temporarily experiencing physical sensation. The practice was deceptively simple but profoundly challenging. 40 minutes every single day she would sit and return to this recognition whenever her mind wandered to the pain, whenever fear arose, whenever doubt whispered that nothing was changing. For the first week, nothing seemed different. The pain was still there, just as intense as before. The second week brought the same physical experience, and Margaret's mind kept questioning whether this practice was actually working. But something deeper was shifting beneath the surface of her awareness. Her relationship to the pain was beginning to transform, even though the sensation itself hadn't changed yet. Then, after 3 weeks of this consistent daily practice, something remarkable happened. The chronic pain that had been her constant companion for 3 years didn't gradually fade away. Bit by bit, it simply dissolved completely one morning as she sat in recognition of her true nature. The impact of this wasn't just physical relief, it was a fundamental revelation about the mechanics of how consciousness creates experience. Margaret realized with absolute clarity that the pain had been maintained all along by her identification with a suffering physical body, rather than with the infinite divine presence that was her actual identity. This wasn't a miracle in the traditional sense of God reaching down from heaven to fix her problem. This was consciousness recognizing itself beyond the limitations of form, and physical reality reorganizing itself to match that recognition. The journey from chronic suffering to complete freedom happened through a shift in identification, not through external intervention. If you've ever struggled with something that seemed unchangeable, write in the comments, "My consciousness creates my reality." Margaret's story shows us how this principle works with physical healing. But what about the very practical matter of money and survival? Let me tell you about a businessman who discovered this same truth in a completely different arena of life. This man had built his company over years of hard work, making intelligent decisions based on solid information. He wasn't reckless or irresponsible. Yet despite everything he did right, circumstances seemed to conspire against him relentlessly. Market conditions shifted. Deals fell. Through at the last moment, reliable clients disappeared, and he found himself staring at complete financial collapse. When he came to Smith Wigglesworth, he was desperate in the way only someone facing bankruptcy can be. His entire livelihood, his family's security, everything he had worked for was crumbling before his eyes. He did what most of us would do in that situation. He asked for prayers to change his circumstances, to save his business, to make the external conditions favorable again. What Wigglesworth told him must have seemed almost cruel in its simplicity. Your true supply is not in external conditions. Your supply exists in consciousness itself. Think about how radical that statement really is. Here's a man watching his bank accounts drain, creditors calling, employees depending on him, and he's being told that his problem isn't actually about money at all. The hidden truth behind every financial struggle is the same. We've been taught to look outside ourselves for supply, to believe that our well-being depends on market conditions, economic trends, other people's decisions. We've placed our faith in external circumstances that are, by their very nature, constantly changing and beyond our direct control. Wigglesworth's approach required a complete transformation of this man's entire mindset around supply and provision. He had to stop doing what seemed most natural and urgent, frantically trying to fix the external situation, desperately seeking new clients, anxiously watching market indicators. Instead, he was taught to spend dedicated time each day recognizing one foundational truth. I am the infinite source expressing itself here and now. Not hoping this might become true someday, not wishing for it desperately, but recognizing what is already factually true beneath the appearance of financial lack. This practice demanded enormous faith, especially in those first weeks when nothing visible changed. The businessman had to make daily decisions to invest time in what looked like doing nothing while his business continued declining. Behind the scenes of his external circumstances, however, a profound shift was taking place in his consciousness. He was moving from seeing himself as a limited individual dependent on external conditions to recognizing himself as the expression of infinite intelligent source. Within 2 months, something remarkable began happening. Opportunities started emerging that he literally couldn't have seen before. Through his previous consciousness of lack and struggle, these weren't random coincidences or lucky breaks. New clients appeared who seemed to find him without conventional marketing. Business deals that had been completely blocked for months suddenly unlocked and moved forward smoothly. The impact wasn't gradual improvement. It was a fundamental reorganization of his entire business reality. By 6 months, his company wasn't just surviving. It was thriving beyond where it had been before the crisis began. The external circumstances had reorganized themselves to match his transformed internal consciousness. He had shifted from identifying with limitation and scarcity to recognizing infinite supply as his true nature, and the physical world of money, clients, and opportunities simply reflected that shift back to him. The journey from near bankruptcy to abundance happened not through better business strategy, but through consciousness transformation. Leave a comment saying, infinite supply, if you're ready to shift your relationship with provision. Now let me share another story that shows how this understanding transforms one of the most heart-wrenching situations a parent can face. There was a mother whose young son struggled with severe behavioral challenges that disrupted their entire family. Every day felt like a battle. Teachers called regularly with complaints. Other parents avoided playdates. Family gatherings became sources of stress and embarrassment. She had tried everything: therapy sessions, behavioral interventions, dietary changes, medication adjustments. She prayed constantly, begging God to heal her child, to make him normal, to give her family peace. What she didn't realize was that her very approach was reinforcing the problem. Every time she looked at her son, she saw the behavior issues. Every prayer focused on fixing what was wrong. Every thought centered on the problem that needed to be solved. She was exhausting herself in a battle against what seemed like unchangeable reality, and the more energy she poured into fighting the problem, the more solid and immovable it became. Her entire mindset had become organized around limitation. When Smith Wigglesworth worked with this mother, he gave her guidance that initially seemed almost impossible to follow. He told her to stop seeing her child through the distorted lens of problem and limitation. Instead, she needed to practice recognizing the Christ presence as the actual truth of her son's being. This didn't mean denying the challenging behavior she witnessed every day. It meant absolutely refusing to accept that behavior as the ultimate truth about his spiritual identity. The hidden truth she had to embrace was radical. Her son's difficult behavior was a temporary appearance in consciousness, not the eternal reality of who he was at the deepest level. Every morning before the chaos of the day began, she would sit quietly and recognize, I am expressing as my child's true divine nature, whole and complete and perfect. This practice required enormous faith because for 5 full weeks, nothing visible changed. The behavioral challenges continued exactly as before. But behind the scenes of these external circumstances, something profound was shifting in her consciousness and, mysteriously, in the very atmosphere around her child. Then gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, small changes began appearing. Her son became noticeably calmer in certain situations. Teachers mentioned improvements they were observing. The transformation wasn't dramatic overnight. It was consistent, steady, undeniable. By 3 months of faithful practice, everyone who knew this child could see the impact. The change hadn't come from her fixing him through human effort or manipulation. It came from her shifting what she held in consciousness about his true nature. What Wigglesworth was teaching this mother, and what he taught thousands of others, was what he called the practice of the presence. This is the foundational discipline that makes all other spiritual understanding practical and demonstrable in daily life. The practice itself is beautifully simple. Intentionally pause multiple times throughout your busy day to acknowledge one truth. The infinite is here now in this present moment, not somewhere distant, not in some future time when conditions improve, but here, now, as the very consciousness through which you're experiencing life. Set aside just 5 minutes 3 distinct times during each day, not to pray for specific outcomes you desire, not to visualize the things you want to manifest, but simply to rest in pure awareness of divine presence without any agenda or goal. This isn't about achieving something or getting somewhere. This is about recognizing what already is. Let whatever thoughts arise come and go naturally without fighting them or following them down mental rabbit holes. Simply return again and again to the direct recognition that infinite presence is expressing itself as this exact moment of awareness. Write in the comments, I practice presence, if you're ready to make this shift in your daily journey. The practice of presence creates the foundation, But there's another crucial understanding that Smith Wigglesworth emphasized, which completely transforms how you relate to challenges in your life. He taught something he called the impersonalization of problems, and this revelation changes everything about how you experience difficulty. Here's what most people miss. The problems, diseases, limitations, and struggles you're facing are not actually personal to you as an individual. They represent the universal human belief in separation from infinite source. Think about the profound implications of this shift in perspective. When financial lack shows up in your experience, your immediate response is probably to take it personally. You think it's because you're not smart enough, not worthy enough, not working hard enough. You analyze your personal failures and deficiencies. But the hidden truth is that financial lack isn't happening because you specifically are broken or deficient. It's appearing because human consciousness in general believes in the reality of limitation and separation from infinite supply. This isn't your personal problem. It's a universal false belief appearing in your particular experience. The same applies to disease in your body. When symptoms arise, the natural human response is to identify with them personally, to make them part of your identity. I have this condition. This is my illness. My body is failing. But disease isn't occurring because you individually are broken or being punished or have failed spiritually. It's manifesting because human consciousness collectively believes in vulnerability, deterioration, and separation from infinite life. When you see this clearly, when you recognize that these challenges are universal false beliefs appearing in your awareness rather than personal truths about your spiritual identity, something fundamental shifts in your relationship to them. You stop fighting problems on a personal level, which is where most people exhaust themselves without results. You stop taking challenges as evidence of your personal unworthiness or failure. Instead, you recognize them for what they actually are: temporary appearances of collective belief in limitation, showing up in your experience but not defining your true nature. This doesn't mean denying or suppressing your current experience of difficulty. It means recognizing clearly that what you're experiencing is the temporary appearing of universal false belief, not the eternal truth of your divine nature. From this recognition of impersonalization, you can stand firm in the declaration, "I am the truth," rather than continuing to identify your real self with the temporary appearance of limitation. This shift in perspective makes an enormous difference in your ability to maintain transformed consciousness even when circumstances look overwhelming. You're not personally damaged goods trying to fix yourself. You're infinite consciousness temporarily experiencing the appearance of limitation. Now, to deepen this understanding even further, Wigglesworth taught what he called resting in the Word. This practice is deceptively simple but profoundly powerful over time. It means finding one specific spiritual truth that resonates deeply with your soul, and then living with it continuously throughout your day for an extended period, not repeating it mechanically like some magic spell, but letting it gradually permeate every level of your consciousness until it becomes your automatic response to life. Perhaps you choose, "The kingdom of God is within me," or "I and the Father are one," or simply, "I am itself." The key is choosing just one truth that speaks to your present need and level of understanding, then making it your constant companion for many days or even weeks at a time. When fear suddenly arises in response to circumstances, you immediately return to this truth. When doubt appears trying to convince you nothing is working, you remember this truth. When external conditions look completely overwhelming, you rest in this truth. You're not using these words as formulas that magically make things happen. You're letting this truth reprogram the deep subconscious patterns of consciousness that have been creating your experience for years. The impact is gradual and cumulative, working beneath the surface of your awareness to transform the very foundation of how you perceive reality. Comment: I rest in truth, if this practice resonates with your journey. Now let me be completely honest with you about the real challenge you're going to face on this journey, because Smith Wigglesworth never sugarcoated the difficulties people encounter when trying to live from this understanding. The biggest obstacle isn't lack of information or not understanding the concepts intellectually. The real challenge is the significant gap between intellectual understanding and actual lived experience from transformed consciousness. You can sit here right now and fully grasp "I am the way," as an inspiring concept in your mind while still automatically reacting to life circumstances from fear, lack, and limitation tomorrow when real pressure hits. This gap between knowing and being frustrates more sincere seekers than almost anything else on the spiritual path. They read transformative teachings, have moments of profound clarity and insight, feel that surge of spiritual truth washing over them, yet find themselves still struggling with the exact same old patterns when facing real-life challenges and decisions. It's like having a map to treasure but not being able to actually walk the path. You know where you should go, you understand the directions perfectly, but your feet keep walking the old, familiar route of worry and struggle. Wigglesworth was refreshingly honest about this frustrating reality. He taught clearly that genuine consciousness transformation happens in layers over extended time, not instantly through one powerful revelation. Your surface conscious mind might accept and enthusiastically agree with the spiritual truth, while much deeper patterns of belief formed over many years continue operating automatically beneath your awareness, controlling your responses and creating your experience behind the scenes without your conscious permission. These deep subconscious patterns were formed gradually over years or even decades of conditioning, programming, and repetition. They don't simply dissolve and disappear because you read something inspiring or have one moment of spiritual clarity. The hidden truth is that transformation is more like gradually rewiring your entire operating system rather than flipping a switch. This is why consistent daily practice matters so much even when nothing seems to be changing on the surface. The other absolutely real challenge you must face is the constant, powerful pull of physical appearances and sense testimony. Your physical senses are incredibly convincing. They report disease in your body with unmistakable symptoms you can feel every moment. Your bank account shows concrete lack with actual numbers you can see. Your relationships reflect obvious conflict with real words and actions that happened. Everything, visible and tangible, screams loudly that limitation is solid reality, while the truth of infinite presence remains completely invisible to physical perception. The human mind is naturally designed to believe what it sees, hears, touches, and measures, while automatically doubting what it cannot perceive through the 5 physical senses. This is biological programming for physical survival, and it's incredibly strong. Anyone can easily recognize divine presence when life circumstances are comfortable, health is good, money is flowing, and relationships are harmonious. The real spiritual work that produces genuine transformation happens when you maintain recognition of infinite presence, even when every single appearance aggressively contradicts it. This is exactly where committed spiritual practice matters most and makes the crucial difference in your journey. This isn't denial of what you see and experience. This isn't pretending things are fine when they clearly are not. This is refusing to accept temporary appearance as ultimate reality about your spiritual nature and identity. When fear arises about your financial situation, you don't fight against the fear or try to suppress it through willpower. You recognize, I am the presence of infinite supply, and let the fear be present without believing it or making critical decisions from it. The impact of this practice accumulates over time, gradually shifting the very foundation of your consciousness. Write in the comments, I choose truth over appearance if you're committed to this transformation. Let me tell you about a man named Robert who discovered just how deep this understanding needs to go when real crisis hits. Robert had been faithfully practicing Wigglesworth's teachings for about a year, and his life had transformed dramatically. His chronic health issues had improved significantly. His previously unstable finances had become steady and reliable. His difficult relationships had deepened and harmonized in ways he never thought possible. He was living proof that this consciousness work actually produces real results. Then, without any warning, his wife received a serious illness diagnosis from her doctor after what should have been routine testing. Everything in Robert wanted to immediately abandon his spiritual practice and panic. His mind screamed at him to desperately beg God to heal her, to frantically research every possible treatment, to fall back into the old patterns of fear and desperate seeking. This is the moment of truth that reveals whether you actually understand this teaching or whether you've just been playing with inspiring ideas. The real test of your spiritual foundation comes not when life is comfortable, But when someone you love deeply is suffering and every human instinct tells you to react from fear. But Robert remembered what Wigglesworth had taught him clearly. The moment of crisis is exactly when you must stand firmest in spiritual truth, not abandon it for human panic alone. This didn't mean becoming cold, unfeeling, or detached from his wife's suffering. It didn't mean refusing medical treatment or pretending the symptoms weren't real. It meant maintaining crystal-clear consciousness about ultimate reality regardless of appearances. Robert spent multiple hours daily recognizing the Christ presence as the absolute truth of his wife's being, beneath all symptoms and medical diagnoses. He didn't deny her uncomfortable symptoms, or tell her they weren't happening. He fully supported appropriate medical care and treatment. But internally, in his own consciousness where the real spiritual work happens behind the scenes, he absolutely refused to accept disease as ultimate reality about her spiritual identity. He rested consistently in this recognition. I am the life eternal expressing as her being right now. This practice was not easy or comfortable, especially during those first weeks when test results came back concerning and symptoms persisted. Some days he struggled significantly with fear and doubt creeping in. But he made the decision again and again to return to this recognition of truth. After 4 challenging months of this faithful practice, something remarkable happened. Her condition completely reversed. Medical doctors were genuinely surprised and couldn't fully explain the turnaround using conventional medical understanding. But Robert understood perfectly what had occurred. The transformation didn't come from medical intervention alone. It came from consciousness holding steady in recognition of wholeness, while the body went through its healing process. What's even more profound is what happens when you consistently live from this transformed consciousness over time. You naturally become what Wigglesworth called a healing presence wherever you happen to be. This isn't about trying to heal people or fix their problems. This is about the consciousness of wholeness that you recognize and rest in, radiating naturally and affecting the very atmosphere around you. People in your presence often feel unexplainably peaceful, hopeful, or clarified without understanding why. A stressed cashier has a noticeably better day after briefly interacting with you at the checkout. A worried friend feels mysteriously calmer and more centered, just sitting in your company for an hour, even though you never discussed anything spiritual. This ministry of presence is the natural impact of living from I am consciousness. It's not your personal power or some special ability you've developed. It's Christ consciousness naturally expressing through you and touching everyone around you. This is your true calling and the ultimate revelation of what Jesus meant when he said, I am the way. Comment, I am a healing presence if you feel this truth awakening in you. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, you already know this message found you for a reason. The understanding of I am as divine consciousness isn't just spiritual philosophy. It's the practical foundation for transforming every area of your life. What we've explored here today barely scratches the surface of what becomes possible when you consistently live from this recognition. This channel exists to bring you these deeper revelations, to guide you beyond surface-level inspiration into actual consciousness transformation that produces real, demonstrable results in your daily experience. If this resonates with your soul's journey, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming content. We're going even deeper into these teachings, exploring advanced practices and addressing the specific challenges people face when applying these principles to relationships, health, finances, and purpose. Leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," if you feel that unmistakable inner knowing that you were supposed to find this video today. I read every single comment, and there's something powerful about declaring your recognition publicly. It anchors the transformation in your consciousness. And if this content created genuine value for you, if something shifted in your understanding during these moments we've spent together, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who are ready for it. People who are searching for exactly this truth right now without even knowing what they're looking for. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into how to practically apply I am consciousness to specific life challenges. Click and continue with me over there, because your transformation has only just begun.